Welcome to another movie plot. It begins in Mexico with a terrified worker afraid to touch the ground. He's being chased by an aggressive earthworm, and in an attempt to reach his van he hopscotches across oil barrels, but he's knocked off and swiftly eaten by the subterranean slug called a graboid. Sometime later, a cowboy named Earl struggles running his farm alone and threatens his ostrich with a barbecue glaze. He's visited by the enthusiastic young cab driver Grady, who's brought with him a representative from the oil company named Carlos. He wants to recruit Earl, who is one of only a few people known to have survived a graboid attack when he and his best friend made headlines. Carlos tells him that he already tried his friend, but he's happily married, so he came to Earl, and wants his help eliminating them, as the new outbreaks already resulted in 6 deaths. Still haunted by his first encounter, Earl refuses and goes inside to cool off in the fridge. So Grady attempts to persuade him alone while snooping around and playing on his Tremors arcade machine. With nothing left but the farm and extensive knowledge of how to kill the creatures, Earl agrees at the price of 50 grand per graboid, thinking that this is his second chance at a new life. He also agrees to take Grady with him since he's eager to join, and he'll give Earl time to run away while the worm's eating him. The two travel down to Mexico in Earl's truck while he teaches Grady how to play paper scissors rock, as he apparently lives under one. When they reach the oil refinery, the two meet the chief engineer Pedro and receive a few cases of explosives and 2 ARs. Carlos informs them that the company's willing to pay them double for every graboid they catch alive, but at the notion of even attempting this, Earl begins to have second thoughts. Nothing Grady says seems to change his mind, until he's suddenly convinced to stay a little longer at the site of the team's geologist Kate. She also introduces them to her assistant Julio, who's just finished setting up seismographs around the area so that the boys can track the location of the graboids while hunting them. The team hunker down inside the refinery for the night, getting to know each other a bit better before the big day. Since the worms are blind and only hunt with vibrations, Grady comes up with the idea to drag chain links as bait to attract the graboids. They set off in the morning with their monitor and a freshly shaved face for Earl that can only be for Kate's benefit. They find the best location to deploy the noisemakers and begin recklessly driving around the mountainside. When a graboid approaches, they exit into the bed and switch over to an RC car strapped with dynamite as the second part of their plan. When the creature swallows it up, the boys detonate the explosives, sending chunks of the worm flying all over their umbrellas. The boys go around killing 11 graboids in total and spending their lunches eating safely atop the boulders. After cleaning off the resulting gunk, they turn in for the night as a coyote's heard being eaten in the distance. The next morning they round up their kills to equate an even 300 grand each, when a larger than average graboid comes speeding up out of nowhere and narrowly misses eating Grady. After swallowing their radio the day before, the particularly smart slug now plays music when it's nearby and begins dragging Earl's truck by the chain. Grady opens fire but is unable to penetrate the ground as they're left helpless, until the graboid goes under a large boulder, breaking the chain free and releasing them. They want to hunt it, but the monitor reports a load of 8 worms approaching, so they retreat back to the refinery for supplies. Once there, they call one of the few other survivors of the previous graboid invasion, Burt. He's a well-equipped survivalist who recently broke up with his sweetheart and jumps at the chance to mount another head on his wall. A short time later, Kate's looking over a fossil and realizes that it belongs to one of the graboids, dating them as having lived on this earth since before even the dinosaurs, which disappoints Earl, who always thought they were from outer space. Suddenly Julio alerts them to a uniquely large beast approaching fast, but it's just Burt pulling in with a truckload of weapons and supplies. Apart from 2 tons of explosives, he's also brought along an elephant gun and a .50 caliber rifle with anti-tank cartridges. The 3 resume their hunt by stocking up on military rations and splitting up into 2 teams. Burt's alone, using the RC cars to collect classic bounties from the less intelligent ones, while Grady and Earl are together and decide to investigate the odd behavior of the graboid that's now heading away from them. Upon catching up, the graboid suddenly breaches, causing a startled Earl to reverse the truck back into a ditch. When Grady attempts to use the RC on it, they notice that it's still in the same spot and think that it must be sick. Assuming that they've just caught a live one, Earl contacts Kate over the radio and tells them to send Pedro with a truck to pick them up. They wait until it gets dark, listening to the graboid making loud moans throughout the night, until eventually checking on it and discovering that it's been hollowed out and assuming that something emerged from it. With the radio suddenly not working, the two see Pedro pull up in the distance and need to trek through the darkness to reach him. Earl has Grady carry the guns while he doesn't take his eyes off the monitor, only to come up on the truck already torn apart by whatever exited the graboid. The engine's been chewed out and something that was able to chase Pedro onto the bed of the truck has left nothing of him but the arms. Terrified, the two run to the nearest radio tower, just to discover that it's also destroyed and assume that it's a result of the creature getting smarter. Nearby they locate a vehicle still intact that Grady hotwires to escape, when a creature begins approaching from around the building, so they get on guard. It pops out a tiny two-legged graboid that seems harmless at first, until the shrieker detects the boys watching it and lets out a scream. It charges at them but goes down quite easily compared to the larger model, but the boys aren't able to retrieve it before fleeing when more come rounding the bar. Elsewhere, Burt's had no movement on the monitors in hours and decides to return to the refinery. He gets lost when pulling over to look at a map and is suddenly jumped by the gang of shriekers. By the morning, Kate's getting worried as she's unable to contact anyone due to the radio tower being destroyed. Julio pops his head through a window to hear from Kate the bad news, when he's all of a sudden attacked by one of the ankle biters and dragged off screen. Scared and alone, Kate's soon saved by the arrival of Grady and Earl, who attempt to return to the car with her, but a shrieker's eaten the engine. They fall back inside and deduce that there must be 21 shriekers in total left, since it looked like 3 come out of each of the 8 graboids. They begin to hear a rumbling and assume things are getting worse, but once again it's just Burt with his now badly damaged truck after fighting off all of his attackers. He says he handled them with close quarters techniques but is now completely out of ammo save for 150 cal. Kate's anxious to study one of the dead creatures, but Burt gives her something better as he captured a still living shrieker in his escape. He parks the truck in the garage and they put the creature in a cage, unaware that a second surviving shrieker entered on the undercarriage and started eating rations. The group experiment on the shrieker and learn that they locate their prey through infrared sensors on their heads, and give off tremendous heat when shrieking, which is how they communicate. The warmth is the only reason they destroyed the car and radio station in their search for more food, which once they get the shriekers spit out a birth sac that quickly matures into a full-grown adult. Suddenly the garage is full of the duplicating monsters, so the group flee to the building across the street, but it's still under construction and provides no cover from the shriekers. Luckily, the moment they break line of sight, they all seem to be lost and wander around without a heat signature to follow. In an attempt to make it to Julio's truck, they carry doors that mask their heat while circling around the herd. A straggler blocks their path, requiring the much obliged Burt to snipe it with his final round. The .50 caliber bullet explodes the shrieker, but happens to go through everything else also in its path, including Julio's engine block.
What?
Trying to make it back into the main building, only Earl and Kate make it inside while Grady's trapped on top of an oil tower, and Burt inside the bucket of a small payloader with only his knife to protect him. As the shriekers start breaking down the door to the building, Earl uses some boiled clothing on a line to lure the kids away from the door so they're able to join Grady on the tower. With the shriekers hanging around still licking at Burt, the group have nothing to do but argue and wait until the creatures give up. Earl and Kate get a chance to talk in private, where Kate admits that she was a playmate back in the day, which is a coincidence because Earl loves Playboy. After getting impatient, the shriekers begin climbing on top of each other to reach the top of the tower, which Burt sees and decides to be the hero once again. He makes them chase him into one of the buildings, then escapes out the back and locks them all inside from both ends. Their celebrations for this victory are cut short at the realization that the shed's also filled with all of their food supplies, allowing the shriekers to reproduce at an exponential rate. Needing someone to get inside to set off Burt's explosives, Earl and Grady both volunteer but decide to play on it. This time Earl lies and says that rock crushes paper, confusing the hell out of Grady, who assists in spraying Earl from head to toe with the fire extinguisher to mask his temperature. It allows him to enter the building and sneak past all of the feeding creatures completely undetected. By the time Earl reaches the truck, the frost has melted away and the shriekers begin trying to get at him. He quickly activates a time charge and fully expects to die after one of the hanging lights gives out on him. But his team manages to pass a fire hose through a window in time and they pull Earl up to safety. He tells Burt that the whole load of explosives are about to go up, so they retreat behind the construction site for cover. But with 2 tons of explosives in the truck, Burt continues running until they reach a trench 100 meters away. The charge detonates, blowing up the entire refinery, including all of the outbuildings and far-off sheds. Then as the team recover, they're hit by bodies of the shriekers raining down around them. Burt, Earl, Grady and Kate survive as they walk over to the crater left in the ground. Since they killed 28 graboids, they've made $1.4 million to share and wonder if they'll get paid for killing the little guys as well. It's implied that Kate and Earl start dating while Grady wants to open a graboid-themed park called Monster World with his earnings. And the movie ends.